Hi, my name is Rose Petertil, and this is my story. I didn't have a big coming to Jesus moment, really. I was about 9 or 10 when I accepted Jesus into my heart. My parents took me to one of those mega pastor concerts, and they had an altar call at the end, and I remember walking down the long aisle and going to the back, and that's when I really accepted Jesus into my heart for the first time. And then I grew up in church. My family took me to church, went to church with friends. But as I got older into my teen years, I didn't like going to church. I was trying to go to some youth groups and I felt out of place. So it was very cliquey and people didn't really want to talk to me. So then I felt, okay, maybe I'm not good enough for these people. And so I just stopped going to church altogether. Things really changed for me in my early 20s. I was diagnosed with depression. I was in college and I was 2 semesters away from graduating from the radiology program, and I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't function. I was living with my mom at the time, and she kept pushing me to go. And then finally, after 2 weeks, she's like, okay, if you don't want to go, then don't go. And so I stopped going to school, and I ended up moving out with friends, got into drinking. I was drinking and driving a lot. I got into drugs, some hard drugs too. One of my biggest issues was music. I love music, but I was listening to a lot of music that made me sad and angry. So I always was angry and depressed. And I didn't try to get out of it. I felt like I had no purpose in my life, like just trying to get through. So I didn't really care what happened to me. Later on in life, things got a little bit better. I was in a bad relationship, and I decided at that point I just needed to change my life, and I went back to school and got a good job, and luckily the friends that I were hanging out before just kind of fell away. I reunited with some old friends from high school, and so we became really close, and I did really well. Still depressed. That didn't go away, but I was just trying to get through. I'd go to church sometimes, but I just had this wall up, and I think the music played a lot into it too, is I just was always angry because of what I listened to. And so I'd go to church and I would just sit in the back and I would just be angry and like, why am I here? People are hypocrites. Go to church and you pretend like everything's great, and then you leave church and you're just rude to people. And so that never lasted. And then back in 2011, I was at work downtown, and I worked right next to the Chicago River. I don't know, I had a moment, and I was gonna end my life. I was sitting at my lunch hour at the Chicago River, and I was sitting on a bench, and I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. I thought about suicide in the past, but honestly, I was afraid that I would go to hell. I didn't know, so I never was able to do it, thank God. But this particular time, I didn't care. I just wanted out. It was just, the hopelessness was just too much, the pain was too much, and I just couldn't deal with life anymore. And I'm sitting there, and I had my phone, and I got a text message out of nowhere. And it was from an old friend of mine. We didn't really talk much, but he's a Packers fan, and I'm a Bears fan, so he would tease me every Sunday about how bad the Bears were doing. So, I hadn't heard from him in a while, but I get this text message from him, and I look at it, and it's a meme, and it's a picture of a woman, and she's dancing, and I forgot exactly what it said, but it basically said everything is going to be all right. And I remember sitting there crying in front of possibly coworkers. I didn't care. I was just crying because I knew that was from God. That was not from my friend. He stopped me that day from making a really horrible decision. So I went back to work and carried on with my life. Things didn't really change. Wasn't leaning on God, even though I knew He was there at that moment. And then a big turning point happened for me a year ago yesterday, so end of 2021. I was at home and I got a phone call. One of my friends had called me, and I answered the phone. Well, it turns out one of our other good friends in my close-knit group of friends had committed suicide. I was in shock. I didn't know how to handle it. I remember laying in bed that night, and I was literally under the covers, and I was shaking. I was so scared. It was almost like somebody killed my friend and was gonna come kill me. I don't know. And I realized at that moment, I'm afraid of myself. This is something I had thought about doing. And here my friend he just did what I had always wanted to do. And I found out details from my friends, about his last moments and who he reached out to. And I just remember like crying under the covers, and I said, this is not going to happen to me. I am not going to let this happen to me. It's easier said than done, because anyone who has depression, you can't just shake it off. Some people will tell you just shake it off, or be grateful for what you have, but it's not easy to do. So after that, the next day, I made a pact with myself that I'm gonna fight. I don't care. I'm gonna try to be positive and just do positive things. And once again, easier said than done. But spring of this year, I kept getting a push from God. So basically, I would be very thankful. I'd pray. I'd be like, oh, thank God for everything I have. I have a good job and I like my job. And he kept telling me, well, then you need to start giving back to me. And I was like, I'm not ready to do that. I would ignore it. And then he's like, okay, you need to start giving back to me. And I was like, no. And finally I said, okay, I'm going to go back to church. And I used to come to this church some years ago, and I stopped going. But I really loved it here, and I wanted to come back here. And so I came back here, I started giving, and I remember after the first service, I was still kind of hitting that wall up a little bit. And then I remember I went home and I said, okay, Lord, I just called out to him and I said, I'm going to trust you from now on. My life has been so miserable and I've struggled, but I ignored you, and I didn't want to do things your way, and I would question, like, what's my purpose here? But I didn't even, reach out to you, and I said, okay, Lord, I give my life to you right now. It's scary. I'm going to trust wherever you take me. Wherever you take me, I'm going to trust you. And my life has changed since that moment. I recently became a member of this church. I'm starting to serve, and my walls have come down. I don't have any walls anymore. I've made friends, Christian friends, which I think is really important, and my heart's changed. I'm reading my Bible, and I'm in a small group, and I'm just so thankful to everybody here, and to God for rescuing me. He saved me. He saved me from myself, from my depression, and mind you, I still have it. I have sad days, but when I feel really sad, I call out to him. And I've also changed my music. I don't listen to that music much anymore. I listen to Caleb, I listen to Air One, things that make me think about God and keep me positive. And that's made a huge difference in my life too. So I just want to share my story. I'm so thankful to God for what he's done for me. It just made me think about him being the great shepherd, and how I've always strayed away. Since a kid, I've always strayed away and done my own thing, but he was always there. He was always nearby, guiding me back.